Hey everybody, Steven here, looking at the Steam Deck OLED. This is the latest handheld from Valve, kind of as the 1.5 version, or what I would consider like the ultimate version of the Steam Deck. Now, they had mentioned, hey, we're not coming out with the Steam Deck 2 for a long time, and people kind of misinterpreted that as they aren't coming out with anything, but they never mentioned this, which is a very big upgrade. And although they're not really saying it's this massive upgrade, there's a lot more that they've done to this than I think people realize. I'm seeing other channels are starting to cover this, but I'm going to cover that right now. We're going to cut over to the long list of changes that they've made to this, not just the OLED screen. There's a lot more here. So they've updated the APU from 7 nanometers to 6 for better efficiency, updated the memory from 5500 megatransfers per second to 6400. With this, we're improving latency and power management. They've increased the thermal module thickness and performance. With the display, they've increased the active area from 7 inches to 7.4. They've updated the refresh rate from 60 Hz to 90 Hz. They've updated peak brightness to 1000 nits, so we have true HDR here. They've updated the touchscreen polling rate to 180 Hz for improved latency and accuracy. The Wi-Fi here has been updated, as well as the Bluetooth. So we have Wi-Fi 6 with this. We have Bluetooth 5.3 support as well, and that is going to have the newer codecs with it. They added a third antenna near the top for the device to have better Bluetooth performance, including when it is docked. And then they added support for wake from Bluetooth for the controls. So we are getting substantially faster Wi-Fi here, so download speeds are incredibly fast. And if you're also streaming anything to the device, it will be a much smoother experience with that, as well as just all the improvements that you're going to get with the Bluetooth 5.3, longer range, better connection, things like that in regards to Bluetooth. With the audio, we have improved bass response for an overall flatter sound profile. They added support for using onboard microphone array simultaneously with the 3.5mm headphones connector. With the controls, adjusted analog stick material on the top and the shape for increased grip and dust buildup resistance. Adjusted analog stick post material to improve interaction feel with front cover and reduce wear. Improved reliability of analog stick touch detection. Improved responsiveness and tactility of shoulder buttons switch mechanism. Adjusted D-pad snap ratio and diagonal interactions. Redesigned trackpad for improved fidelity and edge detection. Greatly improved touchpad haptics feel and precision. For power, they've improved the battery capacity from 40 watts to 50 watts. One of the claims here that you're going to see is overall you can expect 30 to 50% increase in battery life. They've improved battery chemistry for faster charging from 20% to 80% in as little as 45 minutes. They changed the charging LED to the WRGB. Added support for waking up from initial unboxing by long pressing power button instead of requiring AC power. Adjusted power supply cable length from 1.5 meters to 2.5, that is awesome. And they added the logo to the power supply. For the frame, they've reduced the total system weight to 640 grams, which is 5% less than the original Steam Deck, which was 669 grams. Rear cover screws now thread into metal. Adjusted rear cover screw heads to Torx, as well as other materials and geometry tweaks on the heads to reduce stripping risk. Lowered number of screw types throughout system. Reduced step count required for common repairs. Improved bumper switch mechanism drop reliability. Move bumper switch to joystick board for easier repair. Improved display repair/replacement to not require taking rear cover off. And then for the software, greatly improved memory power management firmware. Added preliminary support for open source BIOS and EC firmware. And then they improved resume time by roughly 30%. So again, although this isn't a Steam Deck 2, to me it's like a Steam Deck 1.5 or really a Steam Deck Pro. This is just the definitive version of this handheld. It reminds me of when we come out with the PlayStation Pro, or we come out with like the Xbox Series 1X, like the Pro version of the Xbox. To me, this is the same thing. So if you're in a position where you haven't bought the Steam Deck yet, I mean, this is the one to get. And if you go buy it now anyways, you're not going to want to get the LCD version, which is the cheapest version now at $399. You're going to want to spend a little bit extra and get this OLED version. Now I have the 512 gig version here. I don't have the 1 terabyte version. My original Steam Deck is a 512 version as well. Couldn't get my hands on the like special one that they have that has the cool clear coating on it. Unfortunately, they were having some issues with payment when this first launched, but we have some side-by-side shots. I'm gonna show more detailed ones here in a little bit because there's some subtle changes. You can see that the new one has like the Valve orangish power button on there, but we'll look at those differences in greater detail here in a second. And as it mentioned with one of the improvements, you don't need to plug this in when you first get it to actually start it. Just hold down the power button, wait a little bit, and then it'll prompt you through its normal setup. With this, you do have to download one of the latest updates to the software. That takes 3 to 4 minutes, and then you're good to go. And this is the power adapter here with the Steam Deck logo on it, and we have that longer cable length, which is very, very nice. So choose your language here and then pick your time zone, set up your Wi-Fi, and then download that latest update, allow it to do its thing, log into Steam, and then you are good to go. Now, unfortunately, if I'm doing a side-by-side comparison, it's kind of hard to tell the difference with my camera, which one is which. You can kind of tell with the top down. It's really at an angle with the camera that you can tell, and I'm going to showcase some of that footage here in a little bit. Outside of that, you can see one looks a little bit more vibrant than the other, but it's subtle, where it is far more pronounced in person. There's quite a stark difference between the two. So I'm going to showcase just some gameplay of 3 different games right now, just so you guys can see that, and then we'll look at the comparisons between the LCD version and the OLED version at various angles, and then again you will tell a big difference at that point. But I'm really impressed with the screen. I have an OLED for my main monitor, and once you go with an OLED, it is harder to go back to a regular IPS or VA panel monitor. I'll definitely take an IPS over a VA, and it depends on whether or not that VA has many LEDs or something like that in it, but in general, just the colors that pop on an OLED panel, it just looks incredible in person. Add to that now we're going from the 60 Hz to the 90 Hz. Gameplay is incredibly smooth. And I've mentioned this, I reviewed a lot of different handhelds over the last year. Steam nails the software down. And with that, I've noticed that performance tends to be smoother with a lot of games on the deck, as long as it's not something that's just requiring a incredible amount of power from the hardware. So if we're looking at Subnautica, I mean, this is hitting 90 FPS pretty consistently with this. That's awesome. Now we're dealing with low medium settings here, and you're dealing with 800p. But if I'm looking at that on another handheld, I may see larger swings in FPS than this. Granted, if we're dealing in 800p and you have a very beefy handheld, it's probably going to surpass 90 if the screen will allow it. You may get up towards 120 on the ROG Ally, or even 144 if you're looking at the Legion Go. But those numbers tend to have large swings to them, where this generally has a more consistent number that it will stick with. And I think, again, that has to do more with the software side. I think there's a lot of back-end stuff that they do that makes games just run very smooth on this handheld. So where we have that higher refresh rate, we have this very vibrant screen, you have that 1000 nits with the HDR too. So this gets very bright compared to the first one also. And that's one of the things that you deal with an OLED, is usually they don't have 1000 nits. Like my ROG PG42UQ, I think that one tops out at like 250, 300. It's really the true blacks that you get with an OLED compared to a VA panel or an IPS, and then just the vibrant colors that you get. You're not usually getting high nits and those like true whites. With my monitor, the ROG, it has a uniform brightness mode, because what happens is as you scale white up and it can't handle those higher nits, it actually has to dim the whole monitor. Like the fact that this is an OLED and it is hitting 1,000 nits is crazy. And they have high color accuracy with this as well, which was covered in Linus Tech Tips video. So I think they nailed it with this screen. Again, like the definitive version of the Steam Deck, and I've been very, very impressed with this screen. Now you shift over to more graphically demanding games. Of course, it's not going to hit the 90 FPS because it wasn't doing that with the original Steam Deck, and with this we have more efficient hardware, but that isn't more powerful hardware. So here, low settings, I mean, you're getting with Spider-Man typically like 30 to 50, you may even get close to 60. And that's going to be, again, low settings, 800p. FSR I have balanced on this one. I could go performance and get a little bit more, but I usually put most of my games on balanced, and it's playing pretty smooth. There we go. We saw 66, right? But that's really with not too much going on the screen. But with this screen, this being the OLED compared to the LCD, this looks smoother. Everything has more clarity to it than on that LCD screen. So to me, on the LCD screen, it looked pretty pixelated, where it looks very smooth here. And it's not that I couldn't make this look pixelated. Of course I could. If I put this to like ultra performance on FSR, you're gonna get a more pixelated look. But it still wouldn't be as pixelated on the original Steam Deck because the OLED screen here just looks smoother. This looks way better, and because of that, to me, it looks like it's higher resolution, which is awesome because there's more fidelity in the image. I'm also not getting any micro stutters with this like I was getting on the Legion Go. The Legion Go, those kind of evened out over time, but me just running around Central Park, I was getting micro stutters with that. I'm not getting any issues here, and again, I think that does have to do with the software and all the back-end work that Steam has done to make sure that these games that are verified for Steam Deck run incredibly smooth. Now, if you only play AAA games, I don't know if I would go with a Steam Deck, even if it was the OLED. I don't know that the hardware is there, which, quick side note, true blacks right there. The only thing illuminated is the loading right there and then the metrics at the top. But with that, if you're playing some AAA games and retro art style games or just games that aren't as graphically demanding, then this is going to be an awesome choice. Again, the definitive version here, kind of the Pro Steam Deck, and now you have colors that really, really pop. I think you are getting not only just obviously a more efficient handheld, I think we're getting slightly better performance with this as well because of that efficiency that we're getting with all the changes that they've made. So looking at Dead Cells, Hades, Terraria, games like that, I mean, now you're going to be hitting the 90 FPS the whole time. So it's just going to be incredibly smooth. The colors are going to pop on that. You got the bigger screen with this as well. Just overall a better gaming experience. And Steam still has one of the best feeling controllers on their handheld out of all the ones that I've used. To me, it feels really good and responsive in the hands. Shifting over now, let's look at just the sleep wake function. They mentioned it was quicker. It is very quick. Push the button and then it'll pop up very fast. Now my camera is having a little bit of a hard time trying to keep this in focus. I tried to make sure everything was just a little bit darker in the room because for this I'm playing Dead Cells and I'm using HDR with this. So I wanted to try to showcase that in the best lighting that I could. It's just, again, the camera, it was having a little bit of a hard time with this. So you'll see right now everything's kind of fuzzy. It does smooth out in a little bit, but this has to do with my camera, not the Steam Deck, not the game. But right there, just it said, hey, this has high dynamic range. So I have brightness all the way up. So with this, we should be hitting 1000 nits in those white areas. And then again, I have the HDR enabled. The screen I've mentioned multiple times, it seems to smooth out that pixelation that you may see in some games. And this is another game. I'm noticing the same effect. It just looks smoother, which is great. So we have incredible HDR with this OLED screen. the 90 hertz over the 60 hertz, the bigger screen, the 7.4 inch screen. We have Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.3. We have 30 to 50% increase in battery life. All these things stacked together, and Valve just kind of mentions, hey, we have an OLED screen with this and better battery life, but that's such a huge undersell. There is more going on with this, like I've mentioned multiple times, than Valve is advertising. And to me, that's a cool play to make, because with the undersell, you're going to get more people realizing how big of an upgrade it is. And then there's going to be more buzz around it organically through that. People are going to start to hype it up. I got this and I saw those things that they've done. I was like, holy smokes, whoa, they've done a lot here. And I've been talking about it a bunch, obviously talking about it in this video to a high degree, because most companies don't do that. Most companies overpromise and underdeliver, or they oversell and then you get it and you're like, oh wait, a lot of these things aren't there, right? Or they're missing, or it's not to the degree that they were talking. This one, hey, here's a handful of things that we updated with this, and then you find out this huge list of other things that they've improved. And I'm just, again, really happy with the device, but cool, smooth move by Valve in the promotion of this device. So I want to finish this video off looking at the comparison between these two at various angles, so you can actually see that there is a big difference. It's just, I have to have this at an angle for my camera to really pick up on it. And with this, obviously the OLED is in front, and then I'm going to swap it to the back, because I thought people would be like, oh, it's just because of how close it is to the camera. I was like, no. This is really just based off the screen type here. And so with all of these, I won't actually point out which one is which. You guys can discern that for yourself, because it's pretty easy to tell. So looking at the footage here, which one is the OLED, which one is the original LCD screen here. Again, one pops with color and the other one, it's just going to be more dull at an angle. Now, this is also something where the LCD screen, it reflects more light. And I don't know if the coating on that, because they didn't say that in the list of changes that they've made. I know at the highest tiered version it has that, but it also seems like in the mid tier, the one I have, that the coating on this is diffusing more light. Now that could just be because it is an OLED, I don't know. But if we're looking right here, one is just shining more light. It's reflecting more light than the other one. So that's something else that I noticed about the screen, which is really cool to see, because now I don't have to worry about that as much when I'm gaming. Just light bouncing off the screen that's kind of ruining what I'm trying to view on the actual screen itself. After this, I do want to shift over and just point out some of those subtle differences between the two that they've changed in terms of like the thumbsticks, for example, but also the color on these has changed as well. So the original had that light gray to it, where the OLED version now they've swapped that out for a darker color. So with this, you can see the difference between the two. Again, one has that lighter color to it, and that's going to be on the ABXY buttons, the thumbsticks, but also the Steam button. If we're looking at the menu and the view button, all of these have now been changed over from that lighter color to the darker color. You can also see that the bezel on the screen is different. It is a lot smaller. We also have two little openings. These may be light sensors that are on the outside of the screen. This may also just be something to do with how it's set up. So when they mention, hey, this can be more easily removed and repaired, it may have something to do with that. I don't know, but we have these two openings on either side that are not present on the original Steam Deck. Looking at the rest of it, everything else is going to look similar. This is the same build. I know they talked about the difference with the touchpads, but visually they don't look any different. They do feel very good and responsive, I will say that, but the originals felt good and responsive as well. And then with the thumbsticks, you can see the difference, obviously the color there, but the shape is slightly different as well. It does feel a little bit better in the hands because we have a little bit of a concave portion in the middle instead of flat, so it just kind of cups the thumb a little bit better. And then we have looks like a little bit of an increased size as well, which just makes it easier to play with. So Valve knocked it out of the park with the Steam Deck OLED. This was a great surprise that nobody was expecting, where they'd make the announcement and then a couple weeks later you can buy this thing. So if you are looking for a handheld, this is going to be a great option for you. If you're looking for a Windows-based device, the ROG Ally, the Legion Go, those are great options as well. But if you want to stick with something that is simple and easy to use, that has this incredible screen now with it, then definitely go with the Steam Deck OLED. This is that 1.5 version, this Pro version, again, the definitive Steam Deck here, and it makes me excited for, it's going to be a while now, but 2-3 years down the road, when we do finally get the Steam Deck 2, what advancements they're going to make over even this version in terms of the hardware, because we didn't really get that with this. We got all these other cool things around that, but in terms of the processor, they did not upgrade that, they just made it more efficient. What that means for that next version, again, I'm super excited for what they're going to do when that time finally comes. So that is going to be it for this video, everybody. If you like the video, hit the like button for me, as it helps the channel out. I will have a link for this in the description if you want to pick it up. If you want to continue to follow along with all my content, hit the subscribe button for me. And as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.